very excited to have our guest join us. I'm trying not to fangirl all over her. She is the politics girl. You can find her all over the place at I am politics girl. Leigh McGowan is here. Now you're a best-selling New York Times author as well. Congratulations and welcome.
Well, thank you, Jane. And it's really exciting. I mean, for a first time author like me to be a bestseller is amazing because, the RNC is not out there buying my books. The Democrats aren't out there buying my books. These are people around the country buying my books because they actually believe in returning to common sense and like making democracy work.
And that is the name of the book. It's called The Return to Common Sense, How to Fix America Before We Really Blow It. And
Right.
I love the very beginning of the book, Leigh, because it's essentially a civics lesson for those of us who are not deep into politics and necessarily the inner workings of how things work in government. That should be required reading for everybody.
Yeah, listen, I don't want people to feel bad about not understanding politics. I think that was done by design. What have we been told to not talk about our whole life? Politics and religion, right? And what are the two things that cause the most problems in the history of the world? Politics and religion. And then we don't know how to talk about it and we can't fix it, right? So after the introduction of the book, I literally put 20 pages of what I just call America 101, because I think so many of us don't understand how it works, and then we don't know how to fix it. If you told me, hey, Leigh, the problem with your car is the carburetor, and I would be like, that's great, Jane. What's the carburetor?
And where do
If
I
you
find
don't
it? Yes.
know, how
Right.
do you fix it, right? So I just wanted to have a section at the beginning, and I literally say at the top of it, if you know how the government works, if you know how our laws are made, if you understand the three branches of government, skip this section. It's not for you. But if you're like, oh, it's been a long time since I heard Schoolhouse Rock, I wasn't really paying attention in high school, this is 20 pages for you to literally put us on the literal same page moving forward into the book.
And what I love about you and what I love about your videos, Leigh, is you take what can be very complicated and complex issues and you break them down into very easily digestible pieces and easy to understand. And really, I highly encourage everyone to pick up this book, if nothing else, just for the first 20 pages, because it's just such a good primer on the basics of how the US government works. It's fantastic.
Well, thanks, Jane. I really appreciate that. I do hope people will read past page 21. But the rest of the book is also written in this kind of conversational way. And I set it out to make it easy for us to have these conversations again. I mean, you guys are in Wisconsin. This is the perfect example. Like you are a 50-50 state. It doesn't reflect that in your legislature a lot of the time because you guys were gerrymandered into the ground. But in general, we are a 50-50, like we want to have these conversations, but people feel, they feel conflicted and they don't want to get in fights with their family and they don't want to have this thing. So I set up the rest of the book under what I call the 6 American principles, right? That are 6 things that no matter where you sit on the political spectrum, we can all agree make America America. And that's from principle 1, America is a land of freedom, to principle 6, government should be a force for good. And I think these are 6 things that no matter where we sit, we're going to agree on. And then I just kind of go into why those are our fundamental principles based on history, where we kind of went off track, and how we can get back on track. And I think it starts a conversation for people where we're not all fighting with each other. We're not all screaming at each other. We can agree on the basic principle and then move forward from there.
And I think, as you said, Leigh, I think there are far more things upon which we agree, no matter what side of the political spectrum that you're on, than want to divide us. And that's why there is so much effort to get us divided to make it seem like we can't agree on anything. So what's the point? That's not true. There are far more things on which we agree. It's just getting past all of the other crap before we can get there.
Well, exactly. I mean, you said it right when you introduced me. You were like the platform that Elon is now destroying, right? That platform was my favorite platform because it was a place, and I'm talking about original Twitter, was the place where you could call the people you wanted to hear from. So I could
Yes.
pick immunologists, I could pick journalists, I could pick, experts in history, and I could hear what they had to say about topics. And I loved that about old Twitter. New Twitter is like it is there as a social experiment to make us hate each other and think that we are the most divided, most hideous nation in the world, full of just haters. And I just don't believe that that is the case. I think one of the things I saw at the DNC this year was the diversity and the unity that America really has. You are seeing, people from across the nation who are of every color and creed and age and race and gender. And we are out there together saying we believe in this country, we believe in moving forward, we believe in human rights and workers' rights. And it was a wonderful reminder that we are not these red and blue divided states, that we really are the United States of America. And it is a place we could get back to again if we were all kind of looking to do that, which I think most people actually are.
I think people are tired of the division. I think people are exhausted. I think they are exhausted with the anger and the hatred and the finger pointing. And I think a lot of folks want to get past that. If you're just joining us, our guest is Leigh McGowan. She is known as the Politics Girl. You can find her all over social media at I Am Politics Girl. And she has a New York Times #1 best-selling book that just hit. It's called The Return to Common Sense: How to Fix America Before We Really Blow It. Leigh, I have a clip from one of your videos recently about what's been going on in some of the states regarding voting. Calvin, let's play that first clip, please.
He's not trying to sway new voters. And he keeps going around saying he doesn't even need votes, that they have all the votes they need. In fact, he just did an interview with Fox News where he said he wouldn't run in 2028 if he loses. But then he said, let's just hope we're successful in this one. Not let's hope we win this one. Let's hope we're successful. People should think it's weird that Republicans don't seem to care about how bad their candidate is, that they don't seem to care that Project 2025 came out and we can all read for ourselves how awful their plans for America are. And it's weird that so many swing states are suddenly changing election laws and purging voters or making it harder to vote or count the votes just weeks before the election.
Yeah, that seems some things that make you go, this seems not good. I think you're muted, Leigh.
Sorry, not good indeed, Jane. I would say that is entirely true. And I would say your audience probably knows that better than anyone else because Wisconsin is kind of like the state where they were trying out a lot of this terrible anti-democratic stuff. I mean, I think you guys acted like a beta test for a really long time. I mean, it's just terrible. The work that the people of Wisconsin have really done at this point to hold off some of the worst attacks from right-wing Republicans over the past couple of years has been really successful. I mean, I think that what we're seeing right now is a candidate who's not running, like I said in the rant, in swing states. He's not trying to, sway new voters. He's not trying to change hearts and minds. He's out here telling you who to hate. Only he can fix it. And has his people in states around this nation making sure people can't vote, purging voter rolls. They're going to be challenging votes after they've been counted. There's going to be election vigilantes at voting sites. They're trying to make it as hard as possible to vote. And I keep saying to people, if you are a voter, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican voter, an independent voter, a Democratic voter. If you are a voter and one party is trying this hard to disenfranchise voters, whether that is the party you don't like, even if it's the Democrats and you say, well, I'm winning because the Democrats are the ones being disenfranchised, you're not winning because at the end of the day, you're a voter. And if you give a party the power to disenfranchise voters and not have their vote count and not have their voice heard, eventually you're going to give those people enough power that they won't need your vote either. And I think people need to remember that it is so essential that we protect the vote, not just so our party wins, but so the people win. Because ultimately, if we don't have a voice, what do we have? We have nothing. We are Russia. We are Hungary. We are China under Xi Jinping.
But I think Wisconsinites, by electing Justice Janet Protasewicz and getting her on the Supreme Court, by undoing some of the gerrymandering, I think Wisconsinites got fed up after all of these years of nothing getting done because one party had almost all of the power and could just say, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this instead, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I think one of the things, too, what you just brought up, Leigh, was we've talked about on this show is that you can love Donald Trump. You can, wear his hats, go to his rallies, do all the things. But if Project 2025 comes out, if it gets enacted, there will come a day where the goalposts will be changed and you are not patriotic enough. They will change their mind and say, well, you had 4 signs out, but we need 6 signs. Sorry. And they're going to change the rules. And no matter how much you supported him, you won't be enough for his America. And that for me is it's one of the most infuriating parts because if you like Trump, whatever, I'm not even gonna say I like it, but whatever, but you put so much put so much heart into it. And we've watched him just throw away his supporters left and right, from the famous to the unfamous. And the fact that people can't see that the goalpost will change it's crazy, because you try to tell them, like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just a liberal. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's distressing because at the end of the day, Donald Trump is looking out for Donald Trump.
Hmm.
But I also think that it's, like you're saying, you just look around at the people that were his ultimate loyalists, people like Rudy Giuliani. Didn't pay him, threw him under the bus. Now he's disbarred. He'll probably go to jail. You know what I mean? Like, he has no loyalty to people. It doesn't matter how loyal they were to him. And he certainly has no loyalty to the people. At the end of the day, he's going to end up doing what he ends up doing. Quite frankly, I think Donald Trump should be concerned, because that Project 2025 plan, he's the vehicle to get those people across the finish line. He is not the end game. JD Vance is the end game, an empty vessel that stands for nothing and will do everything that the powers that be and the moneyed interest want him to do. That is who they want. Donald Trump will be 25th. He will fall out a window. He will drink a tainted Diet Coke. Something will happen, because they don't need Donald past centering the government around themselves and changing all the rules using things like Schedule F and making the federal government answerable only to the executive branch and the president. Donald Trump will think that's for himself. But ultimately, it will only be for the powers that be of people like the Federalist Society and the Heritage Foundation and those giant money big players.
Well, and what I find so interesting about Project 2025, Leigh, is the fact that they put it online. Either they just, I mean, the arrogance level to me is a new, that reached a new height. It's either they thought no one's going to read 900 pages, or they thought they are so much within their own bubble that they think, but everybody's going to love this. Who's not going to love Project 2025, eliminating FEMA and eliminating the National Weather Service and the National Hurricane Center? It's going to be great. So I find that stunning. Either that they just think it's so great that everyone's going to jump on board, or that, oh, who's going to pay attention to this?
Yeah, it's one or the other. I mean, I think a lot of us who are independent media people, we are paying attention. My top of the year podcast on the Politics Girl podcast was on Project 2025, and it was well before anyone was talking about it. And it made it into the book because I was writing the book last year. And it really is something people should be deeply concerned about. But also, they need to understand that if they don't get it this year, if Donald Trump, for whatever reason, and I believe he will not win, it's just going to become Project 2029. And people need to understand that this is a long-term goal.
No, you're absolutely right. Donald Trump is the vessel to get this going, but they don't. After this year, they won't need him. They will. This is the Republican plan, or the Federalist Society plan for the next Republican administration, no matter who it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, the whole point is to center the government around their ideals, their thought of who an American is, their Christian nationalism. It really does have a lot to do with Christian nationalism. Yeah. And we need to be really clear about that.
We are going to continue our conversation with Leigh McGowan. She is the Politics Girl. You can find her on all the socials at I Am Politics Girl. Subscribe to her podcast. Pick up her book, The Return to Common Sense, How to Fix America Before We Really Blow It. We'll be right back. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer on Air, coming to you across the vast and global Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer on Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and the Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha. Join us. Call or text, same number, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Jabba the Musk hates that we continue to call Twitter. Leigh McGowan is our guest. She is the Politics Girl. Find her at I Am Politics Girl. And she's out with a new #1 New York Times bestselling book called The Return to Common Sense, How to Fix America Before We Really Blow It. We wanted to share with you our mascot, Leigh. This was made by a listener. It's the 3D printer combining Elon Musk and Jabba the Hutt. So he's our new show mascot. And we just love to share him because we think it's special.
I think he's spectacular. I think the entire country is Leia with the collar on right now, compared with that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I hope. Yeah, we're looking pretty good in our bikini, but it's not a good place for us to be.
Yeah, not a good place to be, most definitely. Donald Trump was making some appearances over the weekend. He was in Wisconsin on Saturday, and then he made another stop yesterday where he made some comments that were interestingly about overtime. Calvin, let's play this clip. Donald Trump talking about how great overtime is.
I know a lot about overtime. I'd hated to give overtime. I hated it. I'd get other people, I shouldn't say this, but I'd get other people in, I wouldn't pay. I hated it.
I'd get other people in and I wouldn't pay it. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really, truly wish that Americans were listening to what he says. I know he's got amazing rhetoric. He's great with a crowd. The man's a showman. That's what he's always been. He's your classic old school carnival barker. He can bring in a crowd. He can rile them up. But I wish people could spend more time listening to what he's saying, because he's telling you what the facts have been telling us for years. The man does not care about workers. He does not pay workers. In fact, there are so many people whose businesses were lost after working for him. We should have known that before he was elected in 2016. This is not a man who cares about the American worker. And the fact that there are so many American workers that support him is heartbreaking, because he will throw them under the bus every single time. And here he is telling us he wouldn't pay overtime. He would get other people to pay overtime. And when they tell us they're not going to tax overtime, in the future under his administration, it's because they're not going to pay overtime. It's not because they're not going to tax it. They're not going to pay it.
It just won't exist.
They won't exist. You can just work like little slaves, and that's what we need you for. And I think people really need to hear him.
I one of the things, Leigh, is my father was a Reagan Republican. He loved the GOP of the 80s, of the hardworking values, Christian values, family values, all those great values. And to see that party, now granted, Reagan wasn't as great as they thought back in the 80s, but we now know. But to see and hear people calling who disagree with us tout Donald Trump as the representative of that party, of that version, when they don't see that it's complete. It's as Trump Jr. has said, it's not the GOP, it's the party of Trump.
Yes,
that's the most heartbreaking thing, is to listen to these individuals who fully will not vote for Kamala Harris, but they think they're voting for Reagan's GOP still in 2024, 40 plus years later, when it's clear that it wasn't even that then, but it's certainly not that now.
Yeah, no, hindsight is 2020 on the Reagan administration, right? Like we see now that the trickle-down economic situation never served us. The idea was you pour champagne into the top glass and it ends up filling all the glasses below. But what we know really happened was that top glass just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and all the glasses underneath were cracking under its weight. That's where we are. That's what Reaganomics did to us. But I think this idea of a shining city on a hill, of this great democracy, of tear down this wall, that kind of thing, that kind of Reaganism, I think a lot of Americans can get behind, because this was the leading shining star of democracy that we all want to be. And I think we could get back to that. But the idea that the Democrats aren't the party of family values, when we respect every single type of family, where we say if you're a single mother with your child, you're a family. They told us this on Sesame Street years ago. These are what different families look like. And you'd have a blue Muppet and a red Muppet, and they would be together as a family. And somehow we have said that only white Muppets are a family. Only boy and girl Muppet can have babies. That's not America. That's not what it looks like. And no one wants to go back to that. The white picket fence America was only good for a certain type of American, just like this Make America Great Again concept was only good for a certain type of American. And I think the sooner we can accept that and move forward from it, the better off we'll be.
But you make a really good point about Sesame Street teaching about all different kinds of families. Leigh, that's why PBS is so dangerous and needs to be killed, because of those dangerous, let's all get along messages coming from Sesame Street.
Monsters.
It's the Marxist
Literal
Sesame Street Muppets.
Monsters.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm telling you, if I could do one thing in my life, it would be on Sesame Street with hanging out with those monsters. They are everything I think America should be. Goodness and light and working with your neighbor.
Absolutely.
You never see a celebrity smile bigger than when they're on Sesame Street.
I'm telling you, it's my dream.
Oh, my dream used to be on the Muppet Show. And I wanted to do a duet with Jan, but that was just me. But anyway.
Jan's pretty cool.
You gotta have some. You gotta have something to shoot for, Leigh. You're only
You
number
gotta
one
have
in the New York
dreams,
Times.
America.
You gotta have dreams, Leigh McGowan. She is I Am Politics Girl, #1 best-selling book on the New York Times, The Return to Common Sense, How to Fix America Before We Really Blow It. Thank you so very much for taking time for us today. Best of luck to you. Let's stay in contact. We'd love to have you back on when you can.
Thanks for having me, Jane. And I really do believe in this country, and I hope that people who read the book will see that.
Thanks a lot, Leigh McGowan. It's been a great pleasure. News is coming up next when we return. The aftermath of Hurricane Helene and how we can help. Please stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer on Air, coming to you across the Civic Media Radio Network.